Alrighty. Sweet. Hello, everybody. Day 2 of tuning this car. I had the guys pour ethanol in it before I got here, and then I cold started it. Did not start very well. In fact, it started and died immediately. Then I bumped it again and it started and kind of ran really low. I turned it off. I was like, all right, I need to make some changes. And what I had not realized was that I did not change the crank enrichment table to compensate for the ethanol concentration. So in the LinkG4 here, you have this option you can see there in the blue square that says 3D crank enrich. 3D crank enrich means your crank enrichment table is three-dimensional. So instead of just being temperature and a value, now you have two axes, an X and Y axis. And with that, I'm able to take it and make the crank enrichment table based on ethanol concentration, which is important because when you have ethanol, you got to give it more to start it, especially when it's cold. It needs a lot more to start. Also, what I noticed is that during the stream yesterday, I was having problems getting it to start warm. It didn't start as fast as I wanted it to. Well, what happened was this spot up here was all zeros, and I don't know why they come that way. A lot of cars, a lot of the base tunes from Link have zeros in the crank enrichment table at the operating temperature, and that's just not a good idea at all. Getting some enrichment on there during cranking is really important to make the car start well. This might not even be enough. But what the crank enrichment does is it also holds after a period of time after you turn the key on, or after the engine starts. It gets enough cycles. So right here you'll see for a half a second it'll hold that extra 12%, and then it'll transition from crank enrichment tables to post-start enrichment tables, and that's right here. And then it'll transition there. So the phases are crank enrichment, and then whatever your hold time is for that. And you'll see here, hold time is quite long when it's really cold. And sometimes this is too long. Where they come from the factory is actually longer than that on the base map from Link sometimes. And then they also put it at 0 on the top end, which again, I do not have good luck with. In every car I've ever tuned, it has always started way faster. To have some crank enrichment in it, I mean, hell, the factory cars get crank enrichment. Everything has crank enrichment in it. So, I don't know why the tables don't. But regardless of that, you have crank enrichment initial, then a hold time, then transition to the post-start table, and then a hold time, and then a decay. So the difference with the crank enrichment is it's strictly a hold time. It says enrich, and then bam, transition to post-start. Post-start holds the initial enrichment and then decays it away over a period of time. Now, I haven't even looked at the table, to be honest with you. Let's see what it looks like right now. Again, this one here is single-dimensional, or they call it 2D. It's a 2D table. And what you'll see, which is interesting, is that it is 20%. So it's more than I have for my crank enrichment at operating temperature. So it would probably behoove me to put that up at 20%. Match this one at least, so that it doesn't go richly enrich or whatever. But also adjust this as needed to make it run correctly. Now, O2 sensors take a while to warm up. And what the factory ECU does, I try and simulate to some degree with these, and that is hold an enrichment, a post-start enrichment, for as long as it takes to get the O2 sensor to warm up. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is it's going to start, and then the O2 sensor is not warm, and it's going to be an excessively cold day, or a hot day, or a heat-soaked day, or something's going to happen, and it's going to inevitably run lean for a period of time until the O2 sensor kicks on. The OEMs know that, and so for that reason, they hold a richer fuel target until the O2 sensor comes in line and it becomes closed loop. Since we don't have the option of an open or closed loop target necessarily in here, we hold post-start enrichment for a period of time that's, much longer than what the Link map is. Link map has, like I said, also like 0 seconds or point something seconds or whatever. And so I try and carry it on. I try and hold it for 10 when it's warm, and then throw in, as you see here, 4 to 10 seconds of decay time. So I get 20 seconds of post-start enrichment. Now, when it's warm, that's great, but you got to make sure that post-start enrichment value isn't too much. If it's too much in this period, then it'll rich misfire, and you don't want that either. But then, luckily, as soon as the O2 sensor comes online, then it'll start looking for its closed-loop target, regardless of the post-start enrichment. It'll actually end up having to pull some fuel out because of it. So I also found another table that was hiding in here that I didn't know that Link had done, and it was a table in the fuel corrections here, the 4D fuel. They had 4D fuel turned on and it had TGV position. So, son of a bitch, it was pulling fuel at pretty much everywhere. It was pulling fuel. So, yesterday's VE table is pretty much screwed with the combination of the fuel temp being wrong and then that TGV table being active. It was screwed. Unfortunately, I didn't have a base map to start from on this one, and so I used Link's startup map, and I missed a couple spots, which sucks. So I have some VE workage to do today. But that being said, I've got ethanol in it now. You see it's got a 9% trim right now at idle. So it's pulling 9% out. So that TGV table didn't screw with it too much down here, but we'll see how it is when I get into the spots where I'm driving it. If I bring up the run times here in the fuel tab, we can see what's being added or subtracted. We can see that the warm-up enrichment is still 8.5% in warm-up enrichment because the temperature is stuck at 82°C. It's not warming up all the way. So that'll go down once I get it at operating temperature. But realistically, I could probably kill that and at 80-something C, so it's probably too much warm-up. But I do have a bit of warm-up in there because, again, it's in ethanol right now. And where'd I go? I lost it. Here it is. Cold start. Warm-up table 2 is 15 on 2, and I'm close to that one in 3 here. So that makes sense as to why it's 8. I'm heavily in a table 2 right now because I'm at 70% ethanol now. So that value is a little high. This at high temps is that's something that Link provided. I'm not against it. The idea that they did is they're adding extra fuel when the engine gets hot to try and cool it off some. I'm not opposed to it, but the only time adding a bunch of fuel is going to really cool it off is if you're just barely over the cooling capacity of the cooling system, something else going on, and you're already kind of on the lean side already. That's really it, but it's not going to do a ton. It's just going to make it less likely to detonate, really. Less likely to knock. But I mean, 26%, that's a lot of damn fuel, so I'm knocking that down. Like I say, it's functional, but it's marginally functional. Let's see. Okay, so I got rid of some of that warm-up enrichment. We can bring up this runtime again. See, now we're at 4%, and our trim is 6%. So that TGV table wasn't screwing us too bad at idle. And also, oh yeah, I don't have it. I have this set this way. This is TPS. Okay. All right, give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull my phone out real quick. And I'm gonna go to this. Alright. I'm opening the chat for this so that I can see it on my phone. Lamus BMW. Good evening from Europe. Hey man, thank you very much. Oh, I guess you guys are like 8 hours ahead based on where you're at, something like that. Hey man. 2:31 a.m. It really is it? What time is it? Oh, so you're on the eastern side of Europe then. Where are you at? Like the eastern side. Oh, right there, Lithuania. Hey, you know what? I buy a lot of BMW stuff from Lithuania. I go on eBay and I buy BMW parts from Lithuania. I actually just got an O2 sensor for an Audi from Lithuania 2 days ago. So I don't know why your guys' eBay accounts are rocking, but I can get some good parts from Lithuania all the time. It's funny though that your name is BMW and I get stuff from BMW from there. Moved here from the Netherlands 4 years ago. Is this the same one from yesterday that ran cold? Yes, this is the same one. That's why it's still sitting at 82°C. It runs cold. So, but once I get some load on it, it warmed up yesterday. So once I put some some revs in the tires, it should warm up quite a bit. So we're gonna do that. Anyways, it didn't start well. I adjusted the crank enrichment table, and then remember yesterday when I was talking about the idle, max idle position for the actuator, and I said it was at 9%, and I said, I don't know if that's gonna be enough. It wasn't. I bumped it to 12. It didn't actually use 12. It used about 10.5 for the initial start to get it going, and then it came down to like 8.5 once it finally settled for the startup. But once I adjusted the actuator and adjusted the crank enrich, boom, it fired right up. It revved a smidge high. It went to like 22 and then came down to 16, which I think the target was 16. So I took 0.5% or a full percent off of the startup trim, and it should be quite a bit better. Actually, let's start it right now and see what happens. I'm kind of curious how it's going to start being somewhat warm. I'm going to give it a rev, and I'm going to do that. And what I did there is I revved it up, and then I held it to the floor and turned the key off. And what I'm doing there is I'm actually stripping the intake ports and the walls of as much excess fuel as possible, just to see how it was if it was just sitting for like an hour or two and fuel vapor left the engine or whatever, see if it would start. Okay, that was pretty good. That was pretty good for a start with stripped port walls. Now I'm going to do it again, now that it's running, and it's actually rich now, right? So say you started it and you stalled it. Oops, I stalled it. And you go to restart. Is it going to restart? Because now there's fuel in the ports, there's fuel in the engine. It was richer, it was in post-start still when I turned it off, right? So it was richer than target. So now I got extra fuel in there. How's it going to behave if it's extra fuel and I stall it on accident? About the same. It cranked maybe a quarter, half a second longer, but overall the start was okay. So I'm not upset about that. It's 30-something degrees Fahrenheit, so around 2 Celsius or so, and I'm running a 70% ethanol, and it's starting pretty good. So, and it actually started pretty good cold once I fixed those two maps. So I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, I can do math. I saw that it was 10 hours. To be. Remember yesterday I had the fuel issue with the fuel temp from the ethanol system reading wrong. Caught that. Obviously that screws up your VE table. And then today I saw the TGV table was active and it was pulling a bunch of fuel. So yesterday I went from the VE numbers being too small because the fuel was off, the fuel temperature was off. And then I adjusted them and they were on the high side, and I was like, it's a smidge higher now than it probably should be. And turns out it's because the TGV fuel table was active. So now here I am at this spot where I got 75% VE, and with this much manifold vacuum, 75 is way above what you'd expect. If you think about it, I have half pressure in the manifold, which means I have half the density, which should be around half of the volumetric efficiency or the volume of the engine based on air density. Target, so yeah, it was about 12% off. Now that I'm happy with. I'm happy with this because what I noticed before was that while my remember before I talked about the cam timing was affecting the fueling of that one step. Well, there was also a TGV map that was making it even worse. So what was happening was that my VE table wasn't dropping with manifold pressure. It was staying kind of flat, and it was flatter than I thought it should be. And that's because I had to add on the VE table because the TGV map was pulling fuel down as it went to lower RPMs and stuff. So, you know, like I said, this V map is pretty bunk. The shape is going to be about right as far as from RPM, but the values are going to be too high or too low. Mostly too high because the table was on there. Let's see. Brown, what ethanol kit? Well, it's a standalone, so there's no ethanol kit. Since it's a standalone, you just plug the sensor into the ECU. So what we like to do on a lot of these, so I get the hiccups. Not with the Link. With the Link, I don't do it as much. With the M-Trons, I run the ethanol sensor off the MAF signal, power, and ground, because the ethanol sensor uses 12 volts and produces a digital signal outwards. It's a frequency and amplitude based on ethanol and fuel temperature, or ethanol concentration and ethanol temperature. So I move one pin in the jumper harness. We use a boom sling harness with the M-Trons. I move one pin from A and volt, I think it's 4, I'm pretty sure it's 4 is the one that comes from boom sling as the mass airflow sensor. I move that to digital input 8 on it, and then I just basically extend the MAF harness to the ethanol content analyzer, because all it needs is power, ground, and signal at that point. There's no kit, there's no conversion. I'm not changing the 0 to 5 volts. These aftermarket ECUs can read right from it, and the beauty of that is I get actual indication of ethanol. It isn't affected by water. Like if you have a 0 to 5 converter and you get water in the system, it messes up the reading. It's not affected, but doesn't affect by water. And it also gives me temperature, which I don't have when you do a 0 to 5 converter. So there's no ethanol kit. It's just a continental sensor with a harness that Lane made that plugs into wires somewhere. Now, like I said, on this one, I don't know if he went to the ECU on an expansion harness or if we use another something somewhere. I don't know what he did on here to make the ethanol work. I don't know which one he used, but I know that we talked about it, but I don't recall what the hell it was. But anyways, yeah, there's no kit. It just plugs right into the ECU and works, and that's really glorious. It's great. Okay, so where are we at? So right now I got a negative 1% trim, but I'm bouncing in between these cells that are 76 and 66 right here, right? So that tells me that this cell is probably high, so I'm going to drop it down to 70, and still high. Okay, cool. That's good. I would hope it was high. So we're going to go 77. Oops, I meant 73. Like that. I'm going to take this guy, lower it down, closer to what the one next to it is. 65. There we're going to 2%. 2% trim. Yeah, there we go. This looks good. Alright. Yeah, almost every standalone Jason does. Almost every standalone utilizes the sensor as it's supposed to. The M-Trons, the Links, even Megasquirt uses them like they're supposed to. So it's really only factory ECUs that don't have the ability to turn that digital signal into whatever. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to make this some vertical interpolation here, because I do believe that still around 100, it should be close to these 90s. So around atmospheric pressure, it should be close to 90%. But we're going to test that. I'm going to lock the speed on the dyno at 20. 20 miles an hour. That's where we're at right now. 20. Okay, so we're at 20. This will hold the RPM. And this next cell, probably 1750, I think. Yep. Oh, well, higher. Speedo's not accurate. Go figure. And then we're going to load it some and see if it goes crazy rich. It's actually adding fuel, and that's due to the target being richer right now. 8%. increases overlap. And if I'm in manifold vacuum, then that means the manifold is going to suck in some exhaust gas, which is going to reduce torque output by a little bit, but also advancing the timing increases compression, which would increase torque output. So which one is going to be the dominant factor? You don't know until you try it with your engine, because your cam timing is going to, and how much that's affected is going to depend on your exhaust cam. It's going to depend on your compression ratio of the engine. It's going to depend on the shape of the intake cam. So in some cases, the increase in compression could be the dominant factor, and you end up raising torque by advancing the cam, even in some low RPM spots. Sometimes, though, I should say sometimes. Frequently, though, you can also reduce it by advancing it too much on an engine like this when you have big cams, because you just suck in way too much exhaust. The other side is sometimes the reduction in retained exhaust gas is worth more power than the loss in compression when you retard the intake cam down low. And again, it totally depends on the whole engine, piston velocities, rod ratios, ramp rates, what the exhaust cam looks like when it's shutting, how much overlap is at TDC versus other points, like all kinds of stuff. So I can't tell you, like, it's always going to do this, because it's not. It totally depends. And it's going to be based on RPM. Some RPMs, like light load, higher RPM, will have a different effect than heavy load, low RPM, or even light load, low RPM. You're going to have a difference. So you can't just say, well, if I'm adding 5 degrees, I'm going to get more X or Y. It's not necessarily the case. Alright, so I'm liking that. Those trims are a lot better. That shape makes more sense. I like that. Okay. Still snappy. A little bit of leaning towards lean when I tip in here. Oh no, not at all. I totally read that wrong. I guess while I was cruising it was doing that, but here down at idle, it definitely goes rich, which is surprising because it's on ethanol right now, so it should actually go a smidge leaner. I think this clutch needs to be adjusted. I think this slave might be set wrong. Oh, I want that spot right there. Right there. How rich is that? A lot, yeah. Oscillations. It can be a correction too quick, and you can use an oscillation where it hunts around a target. It's definitely moving quicker, for sure. And you gotta test that at idle and test that in cruise. I'm just doing it right now because I wanna speed it up for what I'm doing here. Yesterday. Oh, my wife's home. Oh, that's not right. Something's wrong. I see it. I was like, what the fuck? Dyno, it's all dicked up. I was like, no way. There's no way that was 573. This thing would have tried to rip itself out the dyno at 573. Not just that, but it was wastegate pressure, which is a little high for wastegate pressure, but let's reload that graph. It's 24 pounds of boost. So over 500 wheel is expected, but not 573 wheel, and not letting out at 6400. Any chance I make FA cams? Not at the moment. So FA cams are a unique challenge for cam manufacturers, at least for the import guys, because they've never experienced this. When you have a fuel pump that rides on the cam, then that cam has to be extremely durable, extremely hard. And typically in the aftermarket, oh, a lot of correction there all of a sudden. Typically, typically that means the cam has to be billet. And there aren't a whole lot of guys doing billet cams other than GSC right now for Subarus, and especially much less FAs for that matter. So they just started doing cams. I know IAG has them now and all of that, but the reason for the delay, the reason it took so long for those guys to come out with a cam, or for any cam to come out with a cam, is because it has to pretty much be extremely hard cam. It has to practically be billet to work and drive the fuel pump. The LT guys, the new gen LT guys, understand that completely because they've all had to go to billet cams to get their larger fuel lobes and get all that stuff. So, my idea is to just make that cam billet and make the rest of them regular chill cast or whatever you're gonna do for your cams. I think making 4 billets would be way more expensive than making, three chill cast and then a billet. But I don't know. I haven't priced out manufacturing on that. But no, I don't have any cams for FA yet. I honestly don't have, outside of building a couple, like I've probably built 5 short blocks in them. I've tuned hundreds of them. But and I know that we tried to put BRZ cams in them once, but Subaru's a bunch of fucking dicks, and they put the fuel lobe 6 degrees out of phase on the BRZ cam, and it did not work. We tried that, it did not fucking work. Now, if it was on a standalone, it would have worked. We could have done that absolutely, because we could have just changed when the fuel control pulse was happening, the dump valve. Let's look at that log. But I haven't got a lot of time thinking about how to make the FA a whole lot better. That's basically what I'm getting at there, or what I'm trying to finish saying. Alright, fuel pressure is tits. I got no issue with fuel pressure. Where is the I thought there was a unzoom all, but there's not, just horizontal zoom outs. ethanol first, and that way I can get a good engine noise profile. When you have conservative timing, it ain't knocking. That's a great time to see what the noise of the engine is going to be, and then set your thresholds based on that. And then when you go down to pump gas, you'll actually be able to pick up knock and stuff. But ethanol is not going to be knocking unless you do some crazy stuff. Biggest concern with ethanol isn't knock. Biggest concern with ethanol is overpressure. By putting too much timing on it because it's not knocking, you're like, oh, it's not knocking, so I just keep throwing timing at it. That's the worst thing you do with ethanol. You need to be aware of what an engine particularly wants. Otherwise, you'll just destroy it with too much timing. I see it all the time. In fact, that's what happened to the twin turbo LS Nova we did. It had too much timing. I don't know how, because we only had 16 degrees of timing on it at like 10 or 12 pounds of boost with ethanol, and a de-stroked 6 liter. So, but it squeezed the bearings out and everything from too much timing. So I need to check some logs, and we need to check the base timing on that thing when we get the engine fixed, because my concern is that the base timing was off and that 16 degrees wasn't 16 degrees of timing, because it shouldn't have done what it did. Okay, so I want to figure out why knock control is not working. Why is it locked? We have to have the engine off. Let me save this real quick. Since I'm doing this now, I might as well. Yep, that's what it was. Okay. Do that. Sure. 4 to 10, that's pretty wide. I'm not opposed to 4 to 10 wide. You just gotta be careful about your valves. I think we had a discussion about that in another chat, didn't we, about AI learning for knock. I think that was in. Did I do that on YouTube or somewhere else? I think it was YouTube. I think we were talking about that. Gain 10, that is gonna be way high. These engines are usually much lower than that. We'll start at 3 real quick just to get it started and running. But yeah, 10 would be full fucking noise immediately. Windows start 10 degrees after ignition. Oh wow, they changed this. I really like that. I like that they changed that a lot. Still a smidge too early in the case of an EJ. But I like that a lot. Yeah, that's great. That's pretty cool. It's cool they changed that. Yeah, we'll have to keep it 60 degrees. But I'm bringing this up. And this is just going to go to 6900. Engines don't knock at 7 grand. It just doesn't happen. 8%. This is going to be 15. For a second, I thought that you were saying the hotkey was M to clear the zoom. That's funny. Okay, so here's his gains, right? These gains, you got to think about a few things with the gains. One, cylinder 1 is furthest from the knock sensor, so we're going to need to listen a little closer to cylinder 1. It's also through an interface. We got aluminum, silicone sealant, and aluminum again between the knock sensor and cylinder 1. So there's going to be a difference there. It's going to need more, between 10 to 20% more sensitivity. Cylinder 2 is on the same side as the sensor, it's further away, but there's no interface between them. So it's going to pick it up decently, but it's still further than cylinder 4. Cylinder 3 is through an interface, and cylinder 4 is right next to it. So that's my initial gains, and what we're going to do is we're going to run the engine. Once I get this saved and stored, we'll run the engine and just get the noise of all 4 of them as it sits at idle, and then adjust those gains a smidge to get them closer to each other, and then give it a few revs, and then see where it goes. Knock threshold. Knock threshold is going to be a factor above whatever we decide based on our gains and all that. Typically in the high hundreds, so I'm just going to set it all right now to 800. We want to have high enough that we can maintain some resolution, but low enough that we're not, going crazy. So here it's going to be lower. It's going to be 300, because as the engine speeds up, it gets louder and louder and louder. So we're just going to do something like this, just for now, and then when we get the engine running, we'll get a curve, and the curve will tell us what this should look like. And the curve will be here. We'll see the levels. That's right here, the level, and we'll see a slope with engine noise. It'll be jaggy like this, but it'll have an average slope, and we'll try and keep it below the peaks. Honestly, if you do the average, it's going to be knocked all the time. It's going to think it's knocked all the time. So we're going to get the peaks, but we want to see what that slope looks like and where these thresholds should be. But right now, I want to set it somewhere so that hopefully it doesn't think it's knocking at just cruise when I first start up and start pulling a bunch of time on the tables, because that's just freaking annoying when that happens. Because then I go to each table and I gotta turn it off again. So here we go. The tables can stay on until you turn it off, or I can tell it to clear it now. I'm gonna tell it to clear it now in case there's anything in them. Then we're gonna save it again, and that's it. That's how we're gonna start it. That start was beautiful. I like that. That was good. Alright, I gotta turn that gain up a little bit. Those numbers are a little low. We'll go 7. There we go. Okay. Cool. But I have an RPM threshold, so I'm going to go above 1500 in cruise, and we'll see what this thing adjusted. Alright. So what you need immediately notice, 1 and 3 are about the same, so I got those pretty close to each other, and 2 and 4 are about the same. I just have a little too much on the cylinders on the other side. I gave too much to the interface, essentially. So we'll bring, oopsie, that was way too much. I'm going to do this. Cylinder 2 is still a little less than 4, so I'm going to do a couple on there. Is 1 and 3 are still high, and 3 is significantly high. Now, 3 shouldn't be that high as RPMs go up. What that probably means is that either 3 is loud, which is a possibility, or we're catching a valve event. When we catch a valve event, that trips the sensor. So cylinder 4 is really close to it, so the valves from cylinder 4 could be making a lot of noise to the O2 sensor, or to the knock sensor, and tripping cylinder 3. Now, the issue is valves will disguise the sound of detonation. So what you can do is adjust the frequency that we're at. We go say higher frequency. Now it changes a lot. Look at that. See the levels change. Going to a wideband in the high frequencies. But that's not always ideal either, because the wideband is not always ideal. So typically around like 9 narrow, somewhere in that range on an EJ seems to work pretty good. only do the 6 as a test and see what kind of response I'm getting out of the system. Surprisingly quiet. Three is a little loud. So I must be catching a valve event from cylinder 4 on 3. I don't like desensitizing it, but can't change the threshold based on cylinder, so I'm kind of screwed. If I want the other ones to be protected, I can't just desensitize the whole table. Two's quiet. That's really surprising, honestly, that it's that quiet. Started off with just a little bit of throttle because I just wanted to get an idea of what kind of noise it was making. You see here 40%. So cylinder 4 is the loudest. Big surprise, it's the closest to the sensor. I kind of expected that. It's kind of weird I got much louder though. I might need to tweak the window a smidge too. Let's just make sure that I didn't screw something else up. Where are we at? 6,000? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Why can't I see today? There it is. So I only have one table right now for ignition. So right now we're running pump gas ignition on ethanol. Well, that's why we're making 450 wheel and not 500 at 20 something pounds. Let's go to the log. Let's verify that tracks. Where the hell is my timing? It's like my logging shit went away. I used to have timing right here all the time. Map, TPS, lambda, injection, fuel pressure, voltage, ignition cut, dwell time. Huh. I don't know why it disappeared. Ethanol temperature, 29 degrees. Let's add to this one. Oops, I don't want to group. Let me go here. Oh, this search function is so bad. 6 degrees, 7 degrees, 6 degrees, 7 degrees. Okay, so yeah, there's no timing on it, which is good. That's what we want. We know there's no way this thing's knocking at 6 degrees, right? Like, it's not knocking at 6 degrees of timing. It's not fucking happening. Not on ethanol. So we know we're good there. We do know it's a smidge lean still, but that doesn't matter for that. So we know that that is definitely our engine noise. You can see here. So 4 is way higher in this region. So I'm going to pull that down a smidge. Pull the 4 gain down. You know, I honestly cared less about the noise down low than I do, you know, up high. And high load is where I care the most. That's where I want the NOx system to do its job. The threshold up top is actually pretty close. Once we get that knocked down, though, we'll then lower the threshold down a couple hundred and get it closer to what the other cylinders are doing. That'll be advantageous for sure. And then I can lower this whole side down, which I can do right now, actually. So up to, that's 5,000 there. So where to go? Like that, lower it down. Let's bump this RPM limit up now. We don't need a 7200, this isn't a stock motor. It's a built motor. Okay. Okay, so we got that. Let's add fuel to this thing. So we know we need to add fuel. It's interesting that I got to add so much right there, though. Go through there and clip, make sure I don't forget something. Yeah, I did that. Oh, it was loud. It's not gonna be cold start. Fuel corrections, what do we got? IET fuel trim. Is this destroyed? Nope, that's good. I wish it wasn't TPS. I wish that was load. Do I have one already I could pull from? This isn't needed nearly as much because this is a modeled fuel system. This is not the it's not the traditional fuel system. It's a modeled fuel system. So it's already going to, I tell you, I treat it like it was an Nemtron. It's already going to adjust fuel based on charge temperature. If it was a traditional model where they didn't have fuel or air density and everything, and we're just doing injector stuff, then you would need to do that. You would need to have a table that looked more like that. make sure it wasn't anything crazy. 4D's off, 5D is off. Dual fuel, we got that. That's based on TPS, yep, that's what we got. That's just for the idle control. Exertion measurements turned off, or fuel cut won't be an issue, closing won't be an issue. Fuel corrections is off, injector timing is set. Okay, so nothing was making it run lean up there. Just want to make sure. Since we had all those other things that I caught later on. So, fuel table 1. We're gonna add some fuel. And he's pretty peaked right there. I only wanted it to be about 5%. So, how far did I go? I did about 7%. It's alright. I'll start rich and lean out. Like that. Okay, so we got the fuel, we adjusted the knock threshold, we'll do another pull, and then we'll start adding timing, because it's way too conservative anyways. We'll add the second ignition map, which is the richer, the more aggressive map based on ethanol, and the power will start climbing at that point. I did that pull to 8 this time. Nice little pull to 8. Needs a little more fuel in the mid-range, but not too bad. See, it's a little lean in the mid-range right there, but it's good on top. It's at my target, you see there, it's at the target up top, and then there's just like a bow in the middle. And so the peak of that bow, oopsie, M. Nope, it wasn't M, dude. Just kidding. We know it's not M. So the peak of that bow is, well, that was a big jump. Right there. It's 6,000. So it's 6,000 needs the most fuel, and then that blends into where it's at the target at 45. So it's at the right spot at 45 and 7. So between 45 and 7, the fuel goes lean like this. So I got to add VE like this between 45 and 7. And it's about 5% at 6,000. So we got that spot marked. We go to fuel tune. This shows us where we were at. So we need 5% in this area right here. That's actually a little low right there. Okay. So we'll go like this. And we're going to go 5%. So times 5%. Or is it plus 5%? How they always forget what they want. Plus 5%. There it is. So that. And then if we want to, we can just look at it. And we can go, I know I got 1, 2, 3 cells, 1, 2, 3 cells both directions. So I can look at it there and go, okay, so that needed the most fuel. That was good. 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3. You do that. but that's not the way it's really going to be shaped, right? That's just a slight indication of how it's going to be shaped. So now we're going to adjust that shape some, because we want more of a bow, less of a spike. And then we'll compare that again at the end. With another little pull. I mean, I could do it that way, or I could just look at the exact amount and add that amount to those spots as well. Or you could use the mixture map and use the ECU's calculations to finalize it. Look at that, that's looking more like a normal VE curve for a turbo with high back pressure when you get on the top end. Like that. This spot here, probably just a smidge. Like so. There we go. There are a lot of ways you can do that. Something better than what I just did. Like Matt over here, who's in the chat, or Justin. No, it wouldn't be Justin. Actually, it would be Matt, who's not here right now. A different Matt. He would create an Excel spreadsheet and catch the exact error, and then go to each individual cell, and he would change each one based on that individual error, and spend a half hour doing what I just did. Because that's just the way he is. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not bagging on him. I'm just letting you know. Like, there's definitely a difference between the way he would do it and I would do it. Let's look at the cam timing. Let's see what we got there during our pull. So the cam timing goes to 30 and it falls off before the boost comes in all the way. So I want to raise the cam timing here and carry it a little longer, because I'm hurting myself in this zone right here because I have it fallen off a little too quickly. So we'll go to the cam timing map, and that's going to affect our fueling too. Actually, that very well could lean it out a smidge more in this 4500 area, which presently, like I said, is really damn close. I'm going to hold it to 30, but what I'm going to do is map pressure's 246. Oh, this is that map. Okay, well, I gotta change that anyways. Yeah, I want this higher. Bad interpolation. I don't know why I did that. Okay. Now what I want the 30 to stay in until the pressure comes in. So what we're going to do is we're going to add cam timing at lower boost pressures, and then blend the lower timing into, or the higher timing into the lower timing like this. So what we're doing is we're making the cams position based on engine pressure ratio. That might be too much. We'll see. Based on pressure ratio. So as exhaust pressure comes up, as boost pressure goes up, and exhaust pressure comes up, we're going to start getting reversion in there. So as that pressure comes up, we're going to pull overlap out. But just RPM alone, not too worried about a little extra overlap. But as I get that higher pressure ratio, I'm going to pull overlap out, because that makes the engine retain less exhaust gas. And there we go. Come on, clutch. increasing the map size because it's not big enough. That's what we're about to do. Plus, I want to have extra cells in here to protect against overboost, should like a boost control line pop off or something like that. We don't want to have engine separation like we see in some of those YouTubers online, like Cletus McFarlane. They have a boost safety not kick in or something and lifts the fucking heads and breaks everything. It's a simple thing to prevent. So we're going to throw in more range on the time map than is needed with a lot of time retard. So this one is a 2.5 liter, so 79. I haven't looked at the power curve. I'm just looking at the boost in AFR. Let me see what power looks like. Wow. Power is flat from 55 to 75. It's got a little hoop to it, but it's a little wiggly, a little weak because the timing's too conservative. And because, as you see, it had 6 degrees from bottom to top. So we added this time map. Now instead of 6, it would be 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Little timing ramp. Power's going to jump up probably 60 horse right here. I'm thinking 60 horse is what we're going to get. It's at 422 right now on that last pole. Horse, 472. That was close. Fuel curve is better, needs a slight adjustment, and it hit 472. I'll just show you. Oh, I can't. I got unplugged from the thing. I'll do it anyways. So green is the new pole. I don't know if you can even see that. Hope so. Alright, I'm gonna take this cam timing here. You see now it held 30 until the boost came in. That transition point is later. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Tiny screen in the corner of a tiny screen. Can I do something else about that? How could I? No. Oh, wait, yes I could, actually. Let's do this real quick. We'll go in here and we'll add the it's this one, but I'm going to call it laptop cam large, like that. Have it be the integrated camera, but this one I'll have big. So hit OK. So now I get the same picture, and what I can do then is just toggle this one on and off for you. Bring this down like this. There we go. And all I gotta do is hit the little eyeball button, and it'll toggle it on and off. Ugh. Get the camera in here again so that I can it probably locks the other video to feed, doesn't it? Yeah, the other feed's locked up though, because I used two inputs twice. I used an input twice. if I turn it off and then turn it back on again. Nope, still my ugly face. Well, it was a good idea. Oh, there I am. Okay, so I should just deactivate it first before I did that to the other one. All right. Let's look at that log. So you see the cams actually held out longer. So right before peak boost, they started falling off. So that's good. And it made more power from everywhere, really. It made power pretty much everywhere. But starting at 44, it made them is where the biggest power gains started. So here, and we got the boost curve real quick. Yeah, made more power and actually made less boost on that pole than it did on the previous one. So the cam timing being more aggressive in that whole region raised horsepower all the way. And I could probably make it fall off to 0 a little quicker. That might carry more power on the top end. Oh, that's ignition. Oops. I was like, that number doesn't make sense. Let's see where we're at. So it goes to 5. Now, that's not necessarily bad. Some of these cams don't want to be 0. Some of these cams do not want to be zeroed. They have too much retard in their grind and their cut, so they might not like 0. You may find cams on the top end are happier with 5 or 10 degrees in them, and you may find some that want 0 from 4,500 RPM and up. You know, you have to find out what that car wants. So this one here, I'm gonna set to 0 at 8. See if power carries better. If it doesn't carry any better, I'm not getting any other changes. If it doesn't carry better, I'm going to set it to 15 and see how the power carries and see which one it likes better. Ideally, what you would do is you would set your timing at 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, like that, and do increments across the board. Lay all those graphs on top of each other and see which one gave you the most at each RPM, and then you put that into your map. Unfortunately, with the standalone, that doesn't have as good of a closed-loop control system as the M-tron does, that can be very, very time-consuming, like really bad. With the M-tron, it has a very aggressive closed-loop fuel system on it, so if your VE is off a bit, doesn't matter. You just do that stuff, get that, and find your curve, set the curve, and then adjust your VE table because it'll correct 10% or so, and you won't have any issues. I realize I'm not plugged in the fucking computer though, so these changes didn't do anything. Lose them now, but it's alright, just one change. Look at that. Alright. Oh, good. They gave me the option. So, with the M-tron, with a very aggressive closed-loop fuel system on it, that works really good. I can get the VE close, set it closed-loop, do my 5-degree increments of cam timing, see where the power goes on each of those, and then put that number in for each RPM and load cell, and then go, that's my time map for cam, and then go and do the fine tuning on the VE up top. So I made sure that one was 0 by 8 instead of 5. Gained some power, but I don't know where yet. I gotta pull the graph up to see. picked up a couple horse, but it did pick it up. And I can't go less than 0, so. You know, I've been asked that multiple times. I do it because I just did a pull. Everything's hot. And then let the car go to idle makes no sense to me because the water pump slows down, everything slows down. I have all this heat in here, and I want to keep the coolant flowing through it, and I want to keep the temperature from creeping up because they'll go after a pull. The temperature will continue to climb a little bit if you just let off, climb, and then sort of come back down again. So I do it to keep the oil going, to keep the coolant going, right? Like everything's hot, the oil goes up in temperature too, so pressure drops after a pull. So I do it to keep the oil pressure up and the coolant flow up. For the turbo too, right? Turbo is spinning 100-something thousand RPM. I let the engine fall to idle. The turbo doesn't stop, right? It's got to coast down from 100-something thousand RPM, and I just dropped all the oil pressure out of it. So I prefer to keep the RPMs up for a while, keep the oil flowing to the turbo, keep the coolant flowing through the turbo, keep the coolant flowing through the engine and everything else. It just makes sense to me. I don't get guys that just drop it to idle right after a pull. I just go, ugh, it just makes it cringe. Shut it off, maybe? Yeah, I can see maybe shut it off because then things aren't spinning except the turbo. So yeah, I rev it. I like to keep it up a little bit for a ways. I don't like to just immediately go to idle with it. Now, that's my logic. Can you wrong? You're wrong. Okay, so ignition is still super conservative for ethanol. I mean, 8's pretty conservative. How's my ratio table set up? Okay, it's set up that way. That's fine. I don't want that much. I want it more aggressive than that because I want most of my timing by 70%. I want the regular at 10. I want half of my timing around 40. How I want it. So it's going to bump make the timing a smidge more aggressive. It's going to add about a degree to it. I'm going to bump a little bit more from 75 to 8. Ramp it a little steeper at the end there. I'm going to add a smidge right there. Their fuel is really good. It's actually a little rich on the very, very top end. So I'm going to pull a little bit of fuel out up top. Where's 8,000? There's 8,000. So it's rich from 65 to 8. It gets richer and richer. So I got to pull a little more out. I added a little too much earlier. So pull some out right here. Kind of like the way it was before. Like that. Okay. Gigantic shift knobs like this. They're so heavy you can't feel the springs in the shifter. You can't tell where the fuck you're at. They're terrible for the transmission. They kill the shift, the synchros and the shift forks and the shift selector pads, or the shift fork pads on the selector. They interface with the selector. I'm gonna pull some more on top here. We're not going to 95, but Well, my link program locked up while taking my log. Bummer. Uh-oh. I wonder if I should have unplugged that first in case I got some sort of overrun shit going on. Open this bitch up, I have a totally corrupted table. Perfect sense, thanks for the answer. Hey, you're welcome. Make sure that still makes sense. There's something crazy happening to it. Okay, it doesn't look corrupted at all. Alright, now I did that to fuel 1. I gotta do the fuel 2 as well. Let's see. Oh no, I don't. Fuel 2 is not ethanol. That's right, it's throttle. Watching behind the time. Right on, dude. Well, I appreciate you watching it all. Appreciate you watching it all. Okay, so that made way more power up top. It made 485. It wasn't diving off. It was almost flat all the way to red line. What was interesting is that the power is flat from 6 to almost 8. The question is it flat from not enough timing or flat from not enough cam? Sure looks good though. Look at the boost curve. Boost is pretty flat at 23 psi down to 21-ish by redline, according to the dyno. Let's see what our log says. Oh yeah, duh, log didn't work. Crashed, indeed. Alright. Too, I think, controlling boost, now that I remember looking at this thing. I don't remember how to use it though, it's been so long. I wish you didn't. I wish I could control it with the ECU. I would take the E-boost out in a second. Run the boost based off of I change this thing. It's been so long since I've used one. Boost. See if it learned anything. I don't know if I have these thresholds adjusted right or not. Nope. got a thing on here. He's got his own thing. But yeah, I could absolutely set it up. I just need to move the wires from the solenoid over to the factory output, and it would work. And then I could do boost based on ethanol and everything else, because his eBoost 2 is not doing that. Yeah, I can do boost based on ethanol and a bunch of other cool shit. Lambda's even a smidge richer than I would say would make ideal power. Dwell's decent. I don't want to go too much higher than that with factory coils. Fuel pressure is fucking perfect. Let's see what the power curves in. Ripping. I don't know, man. I don't know why it's done that way. I might tell the guys to ask him if he wants to make it better. So that I can do more stuff. Like right now, I would hit like 28 pounds on it on ethanol and see where it goes, and then have the pump be down at 22 on it, and tune it like that. That's how I would do it. And I still can, like I said, if he authorizes them to do the wiring, then I will absolutely do that. Boost is a little low, that pole. A little lower. That's weird. Oh, just on the very top end, because I went a little harder up top. I see. Cool, so fixing the timing helps. Oh yeah, let's look at that. Still pulled some out of that cylinder. Still a noisy cylinder. It's weird that it's right here at 4,000. The noise instantly jumps up. I wonder if that corresponds with a change in cam timing right there. Literally right there. I mean, boost goes up, right? How much does it go up? Well, not that much, a couple pounds. It's 14. The gates start getting noisy though, that's for sure. The gates are pretty noisy. But yeah, it's right there. That point gets louder. So let's check VVT and see if we're catching a valve event. Nope, that's 30 degrees. It's not changing suddenly. Although the ignition event is changing suddenly. Right? Let's see what the ignition is. Ignition tune. No, that didn't work. Go to log. And then we zoom this out. So things that change right there. The fuel pump bumps up. Oh, interesting. That's interesting. Right when the fuel pump kicks on, it gets noisier. His regulator is bolted to the intake manifold. right above the knock sensor. So his fuel pressure regulator is bolted to the intake manifold right above the knock sensor, right above cylinder 4. It's right when that pump kicks on, and you see there's this wiggle here, this extra wiggle in fuel pressure going up and down. I wonder if that valve's chattering at all, making noise or something. That's really interesting. Huh. Doesn't have a secondary pump. It's just the pump speeding up. I can change the pump threshold, yeah. I can change when it speeds up. That's 4,000 RPM. It's kicking into high. Oh, that might not be high, that might be medium. And this here could be high. That wiggle right there too. Let's see. Oh, weird. That's not the speed. Oh. That's just the regulator being shit. That's just the regulator being shit because it doesn't turn 100% till there. So something happens here. It catches resonance from the manifold, potentially this RPM. The RPM could be giving resonance to the manifold. That combined with the increase in pressure, and the regulator could be chattering right there because the speed doesn't go up until here, right there. Here it's 66. Here it's 100. So there's 500 RPM before that pump changes speed. I mean, it is a turbo shark fuel pressure regulator, so that's expected. But that is interesting. I'm gonna make it come in earlier. And no, these are the fixed values. You can't change what it is on this one. I'm gonna get 90 hertz too. See if that trend continues. I changed two things though, so we gotta keep that in mind. I change when it starts listening to knock, and I changed the setting. Changed. It got louder higher up now. So changing when I started listening to it made a difference in there too. And that makes sense. That makes sense. So that means I'm moving a valve event into the detection window. Because I made it 5 degrees later, and the VVT changes about 5 degrees between here and there. And right, I'm going from very advanced. Oh no, that wouldn't make sense. That's an opening event. That's not a closing event. That's an opening event. That's just when the exhaust closes then. So we're hearing the closing of the exhaust on a different cylinder. That's tripping the sensor, which is common. That's what you're usually hearing, is that. And since I waited a little longer to listen to it, we're moving outside the window of the exhaust valve shutting. Look how much dropped through there. The noise dropped a lot through that region. Still comes up here and right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some timing out of cylinder 4 and see if that changes anything. I feel the timing's still pretty conservative, but I've definitely added some sauce to it. Trim table. I already have an iTrim table. Oh, individual, not trim. Okay, my brain was having a brain fart there. So good. Average is still higher through the whole pole, so I don't think it's actually knocking. That potentially could be some noise, but the ignition is not that aggressive right there, so I'd be surprised. But you know, every engine's different. Oh, I lost my ignition advance because the computer fucking crashed. 14 degrees at 6,000 RPM. No, I can't see that being real knock. That just doesn't make sense. Unless that cylinder's running really lean on its own for some reason. I would be really, really surprised. Really, really, really surprised. But best way to find out. Add a little fuel to it. I pulled some timing. Looked like it might have made a change. We'll add some fuel on top of it and see if it makes any more of a change. Two percent. 2% is what we'll add. Were exactly 512. Connection. At least it made it to almost the end of the pole. No, still noisier. Still noisier. Pulled timing, added fuel, still noisier, almost in the exact same places. Alright, well, it's 6:30. I gotta call it quits. I still got some homework to do tonight for my class tomorrow. And I'm gonna get these guys to get some more ethanol, talk to the owner, see if he wants to get the boost control switched over to this so that I can control it off of the ECU like I should be able to. And let it cool off a little bit, see if these changes made a difference tomorrow. Check the cold start again. Well, not tomorrow, but the next couple days. Check the cold start again when it's really cold with high ethanol. Make sure that's better. Yeah, do a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's nothing else I want to address tonight. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Hopefully you guys like the stuff I'm telling you. Obviously the 7 of you do because you keep showing up, so I appreciate it very much. And you know, I will just keep doing these when I do the tunes. Eventually I'll get more cameras hooked up. I have my Droid, I forgot it at home. It works with OBS to work as an outside camera. I keep forgetting to bring it. It was dead yesterday, so I left it on the charger and forgot it. But I can use that as another camera and stream to OBS with it, and those sorts of things, which I think would be valuable and also more fun because you get to see the car spinning, you get to see it pulling on the straps and trying to come off the dyno, and then I could also potentially use it to walk around the car, show you dynographs and all that. So I will do a better job of remembering my camera. I also have a mic set. I don't know if this laptop mic is working for this session or not. If it's not, let me know and I will put the mics on. They're in my bag. I just figured since I'm in the car staring at the camera that the microphone would be adequate. If it's not though, let me know, and I will pull those out and hook those up as well. That's it. I hope you all have a wonderful evening and a good rest of the week. What's today? Tuesday? Yeah, today's Tuesday. So I got a full week ahead of me. I got a lot of school and shit to do. But potentially Friday, midday, I might have some time to get back on the dyno with either this car or Matt's car. We'll see if I can even get out here or not. I won't know until then. A passenger seat rig. No. I don't know, I curl up, I got my knees up, just kind of curled up in this little bundle here, I can type away, I'm comfortable, and then I turn to drive, so it's not really a big issue, but maybe for other cameras, like stick one to the wall or something. Is it like, you mean like stick a camera up on the glass? Because I do have GoPros that I could Bluetooth this thing too, if I wanted to, and have GoPros places. That is possible. But then we're talking about a whole production just to show you guys some tuning stuff. I'm not totally against it, but a lot of time goes into setting all that up. I don't know, 375 or 366 or something. I don't know. It's the Borg Warner old as fuck turbo. It's been on the car for many years. It's on a twin scroll kit, which is why I think the power is capping out like it is. I think I'd get more out of it if I had the boost, but overall it's ripped pretty good. So save that. Alrighty guys, turn this off. Thanks again for coming around. I will see you guys in the next one.